Okay, so today we are going to look at slugging and batting averages. So before we get too deep into this lesson, what's going to be really important is that we understand the terminology that goes on. So obviously with slugging and batting, we're talking about baseball. But it's important to understand what all of these letters mean in this formula. That'll help us out a lot. So of course this is your slugging percentage itself. But what you see on the right side there, that's the weighted average for their slugging percentage. So it's important, like I said, to know what these symbols mean. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, write all of it down, and then explain what all of those mean. Okay, so the S stands for a single. So single means that you just get one base. So if you just think about what a single means in just like outside of baseball, it should still stand for one. We have a double, that of course means two. Triple is three, and then if you hit a home run, you take four bases. So you go all the way around, you get a run batted in for your team, but that means four bases. So you get the three bases and then hit home plate. And at bat, that happens every time you go up to the plate. So every time you swing the bat, that counts as, or every time you have a plate appearance, that counts as an at bat. And then a hit is when you get either a single, double, triple, or a home run. So we use a weighted average, and if you look over here, you can see that those numbers there represent the numbers that we explained. So this basically shows not just their batting average, but how well they hit that goes along with it. So everything I described also is right there, what each of those mean. And then it has an example for us with Babe Ruth, said that his had one of the best slugging percentage for more than 80 years. So he had 172 hits at 486 at bats. So here it is. You have your 73, your 36. He had 9 triples, 54 home runs. So you added up and got 308. And then as we scroll down here in a second, you'll see they took that 308 and divided it by his total at bats to get his slugging percentage. So if we take a look at number 1 right here, so it wants us to find the slugging percentage for the following statistic. So what we're going to have to, for the following statistics, so all you have to do is just take these numbers and plug it into our formula that we had. So our singles right there is 68, so I'm going to have 1 times 68 plus 2 times 40 doubles plus 3 times 4 triples, and then 4 times as many home runs. And then we're going to divide this all by his at-bats, which is 320. One thing to be careful of when you plug this into your calculator is the parentheses. So if you notice, we have parentheses around each of those. If you plug this in, make sure also you put parentheses around all of that and then divided by the number of at-bats. If you don't put those big set of parentheses in, then what it's going to do is PEMDAS, and that's going to mess up the answer that you get. But when you type that in, the answer you should get is 0.7. So that's going to be the slugging percentage for that one right there. With number 2, I want you to try this one on your own. Something to be careful of is, it tells you right here, notice you need to determine how many singles are hit. So this H is how many total hits that he had. It gives us the doubles, the triples, and the home runs. So we need to figure out how many singles that he hit, and then once we figure out what that is, I'm going to write that right here. After we figure out how many singles he hit, we can plug it into that formula up there and get an answer. So I want you to pause this video and try this one on your own. Okay, so this is how we set everything up. So I'm going to add his total hits that we have, which is 54. And then we're going to subtract that from his total hits, which is 126. So we get 72 singles that he hit. And then from there, we just plug that into our equation. We solve down. So when you type all this into your calculator, you should get a slugging percentage of 0.633. All right, so let's take a look at 3. It asks if it's possible to have a slugging average more than 1. So the ones that we've looked at so far, I think the highest one that we had was Barry Bonds, which was 0.863. And then it wants to know what's the highest that we could have and if a player could ever achieve this value. So is it possible to have one that is bigger than 1? It actually is. So yes, it is possible. It is possible to have a slugging percentage greater than 1. Have a slugging average greater than 1. So if we think about how high the possibilities could go, it's actually going to be a 4. So the highest is 4. Highest possible is 4. So if you think back to that formula, it's a weighted average. So each of the bases that you hit represents a number. So to prove that 4 is the highest, hypothetically, if you have 10 at-bats and you hit a home run at every single at-bat, your slugging percentage, if you'll have zeros for the D or the ST or the SD and the T, that being the single, triple, and double. You'll have zeros for those, but you'll have 10 for the home runs. So you'll have 4 times 10, which is 40. Divide that by your at-bats, which is 10, and you're going to get 4. So if you hit a home run every single time, you can get a 4. So I'll put kind of like this blurb right here. A home run every at-bat equals 4. And then it asked, could a player ever achieve this during the course of a baseball season? So let's assume that this is a this is a player who plays the entire season, which is 162 games. So asking them to hit it and they bat, 3 or 4 times a game. Are they going to hit a home run every time? No. So this is impossible. It cannot happen because there's no way that you can hit a home run every single at bat. So we can say not possible. Number 4, ask a good question. It says we have a slugging percentage of 0.5 or higher is considered a sign of an excellent player. Suppose the player has 4 triples out of 400 at-bats, and it wants us to determine any combination of singles, doubles, and home runs that will give a slugging percentage of at least 500. So there's going to be multiple correct answers for this, but first thing that we need to do, if we know our slugging percentage, it's what I'm going to call the base count, which is our weighted average over our at-bats. So if we think about this problem, it says that we have 400 at-bats, and we want to have at least 0.5 as our slugging percentage. So I need to think about how many, what number needs to go up here for my base count for that to equal 0.5. Well, just because it's 0.5, pretty easy math, we should see that we need to have a base count equal to 200. So our numerator essentially has to equal 200. So the way we have this set up, 1 is for a single, 2 is for a double, 3 is for a triple, but we know that we got 4 triples here. So I'm going to say 3 times 4 right there. We don't know how many home runs yet, but this all needs to add up to equal 200. So like I said, there's multiple correct answers that we could have for this. So I already know that this is 12. What I would recommend doing for this situation, for our combinations, is trying to keep it ending in 0. So I can pick literally or almost any number for my singles. So let's say I go with 60 singles right there. So I have 60 and 20. What I can do right here, or let's go with our 4 right here. I can come up with a number that's going to end in 0 to make my life a little easier. So let's say I have 15 right there. So if I have 15, so I have 60 right here. I don't know how many doubles I have yet. I know I got 12 right there, and then I know I have 15, which I need it all add up to equal 200. So from here I can kind of solve for x to figure out what number that's going to be. But this number is going to need to be 68. So if I need this number to be 68, I know I'm multiplying by 2 right here. If I come up with 34, 34 will get me that 68. Let me erase that really quick. So that's going to be the easiest way for me to figure out my answer for this. So I wrote the wrong thing in right there. So let's just start over from scratch. So I got 60 right here, so 60 singles. If I have 34 doubles, that's going to give me 68. Already have 12, and then I have 60 right there. When I add all these numbers up, I'm going to get that 200 that I want. So my final answer for this problem is going to be 60 singles, 34 doubles, and then 15 home runs. Along with that, 4 triples, that's going to be the combination that I want to get me at least a slugging percentage of 0.5. And like I said, there's multiple correct answers. If you wanted to have this home run as, you could have it as 10, you could have it as 20, and then that's going to affect everything else. But I'd recommend picking a number where you can keep these numbers nice, ending in 0. All right, so last thing we're going to look at is the batting average, and this is even easier. Here's your nice little formula right here. So all you have to do for batting average is take how many combined hits that they had and divide it by the average at-bats, the total at-bats. So for 1 and 2, if we were to go and add those numbers up, so from problem 1, if we figured out the total hits that they had, it was 128, and he had 320 at-bats. So you divide that, we'll get 0.4. And then for number 2, if we add that up, we have 126. Divide that by our 346 total at-bats there. We're going to get 0.364. So you see we're going to get different numbers, or smaller numbers here. And if you think about it, we're always going to get a number lower than 1. Your batting average can't be greater than 1. If you want to think of it as if you move the decimal, it's the percentage of you getting on base or getting a hit, I should say. And if that was the case, this would be 40%. This would be about 36. So when you go up to bat, there's not going to be a greater chance of 100% of you reaching base. So 7's a good question to end off on. It says, if you're a player trying to get a multi-million-dollar contract, would you use your slugging percentage or batting percentage? I think slugging percentage is going to be your best option here, because it takes into account different types of hits. What I mean by that is when you have your batting average, a hit is a hit. So even if it's a home run, it still counts as much as a single, whereas your slugging percentage, a home run is going to count 4 times as much. So your slugging average is a better metric to use. So that's our slugging and batting average. So batting average is a little easier to do than slugging percentage. So that's the first part of the lesson. The second part is going to be the QBR, so make sure you click and watch that video to get everything that we did today.